What's up? This is a race breakdown for ZRL race number 1. I haven't done one of these breakdowns in a minute, but I figured with the sort of more or less new format of this race and then just the dynamic nature of it, there's some stuff to talk about here for sure. So first thing is the start. Obviously, I knew this was going to be a huge field. I think we had like almost 100 people in this field. So I made a point to get in here early, as I always say, 30 minutes before. I'm definitely hitting the join event button. So this is the Big Foothills route, which means that there are a few punchy climbs on here. We've got the Titans Grove KOM first, and then the Watopia Forward KOM, then the Volcano, and then we're hitting Titans Grove at the final. That's the finish is actually at the top of the Titans Grove KOM, going the other way. So I wanted to be lined up pretty far up. I knew there would probably be some form of splits off the start here. So I really was thinking about this the same way you'd think of like sag climbing a hill. Like I want to start up in the front and sort of drift backwards rather than having to start at the back and then navigate any splits. So I'm talking to my team. I have my Discord in my ear, and the general consensus was if you're in the 50s, that's kind of okay. You don't want to go much farther back than that because that's where people are going to be losing spots. So you'll see when I hit 50 that I step back on the power. And I say step on the power, I mean, I'm over my threshold for a lot of this. Regardless, it's interesting how these starts go and like how the pack dynamics, I don't know, it's maybe I'm just used to other platforms now, but it feels weird, or it felt weird for sure at the start. So this is entering Titans Grove, the first little rollers. That first Tempest Fugit is what that's called, the desert zone that we were in. It's pretty much just flat, and I kind of drifted back and hung out in the 50s until someone in the Discord said, hey guys, we're coming up to the hills. And this is only 1% right here, but I wanted to go ahead and use that to get some decent position, at least where I could see the front. If you're not at a spot where you can really like lay eyes on the front rider, you can't really tell what's going on. So the format of this is a little different, and it's different in the sense that this is a points race and it is a team-based points race. So everyone is on a team in this race, and there are points for each of the KOMs, and then there are points on the finish line. And all of those points, it's not like the Tour de France or something where those points go into individual buckets and you can be like the king of the mountains or the sprint jersey leader, whatever. All of those points go into a bucket, and that's not just for your points, that is for your team's points. So there's really not a focus on the individual competition here. The focus is on the team competition. So with that in mind, I was kind of thinking, I knew these sprints would be hotly contested. So this is a race that there was a Premier League division the day before, meaning like an invite only. And then this is the A-level community race. And there were several different time zones of the community race, different pools. There were like thousands and thousands of teams doing this race. I was able to watch some of the earlier ones, and basically it was going ballistic for the sprints every time. And when I say sprint, that can also mean KOM, the intermediate points, which there are intermediate KOM points at the top of this hill that we are, I guess we're technically on. I don't know. It's hard to say what is and is not the Titans Grove KOM, because as you can see here, the ground, it's just kind of rolling up and down, up and down. So what I noticed is there were people who would go hard for the points, but then it would kind of stay hard through the arch and then down the next like 2 or 3K, and that was forming these splits on the road. So you didn't necessarily have to sprint for the points. So the points at each of these intermediates only go 5 deep, meaning that like the first person gets 5 points, second person gets 4 points, and so on. Now the points at the finish line go, I believe it's 30 riders deep, and the first rider gets 40 points. So it's a lot more important that you finish, even as a team, that you just place a lot of people in the top 10 at the finish than it is that you actually win these intermediate sprints. And with that in mind, my strategy here, I wasn't really sure how I was going to stack up in this field. I haven't done a big race like this on Zwift in a long time. It's something this competitive. I mean, something like this has never really existed on Zwift. It's kind of a whole new level, whole new thing. As you can see, we're coming into the KOM here. I'm trying to just sort of patrol the front, meaning I want to stay in contact where I can kind of see what's going on. And I did do a little homework before this, and I know about where I would want to sprint from if I happen to be in position for it. But my feeling here was that I don't necessarily want to blow myself up going for the sprint points and then have nothing to stay on, because it's going to stay fast going through those arches and down the other side. And the big thing is that I need to make those splits, because I'm going to get more points at the finish for the team by just making the splits than I am if I win one of these sprints, get 5, but then I get myself dropped from the group, which is totally possible in these sprints, especially if you're me. Like, I have a really good kick, but especially if I've just done like a 15 watt per kilo kick, I don't have a lot of gas after that to follow the effort down the other side. And a lot of these hills, these KOMs, kind of go up and then sprint on a flat part and almost immediately start going back down. And that's really the part. It's like the beginning of that downhill section is going to be the crucial moment, where if you don't make contact before that downhill, you're kind of going to be done. So right here, I'm just trying to stay. My goal is to kind of stay about 10th, or just where I can, again, just see the front. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to stack up in this group on these climbs. So this is me kind of feeling it out, kind of seeing how this is going to go. And that was kind of the plan for the team. I was trying to put myself in a position where if I did happen to be within striking distance when we hit that sort of like about 250 meters is kind of where I like to sprint from. If I felt like I was in position at that point, I would definitely go for it. Again, I don't know how I'm going to be feeling. You can see I got 2 teammates just to my right. 4 of us up here, all making the split, and things are very strung out behind us. If you look on the mini map in the top right, you can see that there are people just strewn about this whole climb, and that's good for us. We want this to break down into smaller and smaller groups and basically assure that our riders are going to take up more of those spots within the points placings 1 through 30. So I know here as we approach this, in my mind, I know there's this telephone pole to the side, or light pole. Then we make a turn, and then that was kind of about where I wanted to sprint from, was like this right-hander. It's hard to tell where exactly 250 meters is some of these times, because, oh no, it's this light pole that's coming up on the right, and then there's the right-hand turn. And that was kind of where I had marked, like, if I have it right there, I'm going to go for it. So I kind of stood up and just realized, like, it's not worth it. I would have to pass 4 guys here to get into the points, but I do want to cover this split. So I've got my teammate Mike right in front of me there, and I just want to grab his wheel so we can work together to stay on. And this is what I was talking about. There's these little gaps, and behind me there's a big gap. These could really go either way. It's not a foregone conclusion that these gaps are going to come back, because with this racing format, it really behooves you to shell as many people as you can. So people are definitely working, and as these guys come by, just hauling. See, I think if I had gone completely all in on the sprint there, I might not have had the juice to tag back onto this group when they came rolling by me right there. So some of my teammates, and we really got to get back together before this downhill ends. And that's kind of the group coalescing. Like, that's the final. So it looks like we got like 25, 30, something like that in this group, and we're back on the flats. So this whole zone right here is really punchy, meaning that it's kind of just up, down, up, down, up, down. And I'm trying to use that to my advantage. I'm a pretty punchy rider. I race a lot of crits and a lot of cyclocross in real life, and those efforts tend to be very much like on the gas, off the gas. So on all these little downhills, I'm trying to back off and then just spin it up for the little uphills. And you can watch my power kind of um, going up, going back down. And I'm trying to use that to get some recovery. And that's because the faster the group is going, basically the less power you have to do as long as you're in the wheels to kind of stay there. Or I guess what I'm saying is the greater a discrepancy there can be. What's happening right here, though, is on our Discord, they noticed that there was a group about to tag onto the back. And I believe it was Matt and Mike went to the front and just did like 7 watts a kilo here for just a minute. And then you can see on the mini map now that that gap is solidified again. And we wanted to do that because we don't want to give other people an opportunity to get back on, get into that top 30, and get it back into the points. That could be a big mistake. We could be talking about the difference between guaranteeing all the guys on our team a spot in the points and, having to fight some other people for those spots. So that was a really good move on their part. I remember that happening. We were rolling at a kind of, not insane clip, but when they said that was about the moment I hit that like 400 watt surge there. I wasn't really in position to get up there and push the pace with them, but I definitely had to step on the gas. Skipping ahead here, this is the next of these intermediate points preems, and these are really what make this race interesting and what make this format interesting. I think probably on the next one, just because this one is so short, I'll talk through my thoughts on this format and what I think it's bringing to the platform. But this is the Watopia Forward KOM. This one's the shortest and steepest of the three, so I knew this would be a pretty serious effort to stay on. There was definitely a bigger chance of splits happening. Just with the intensity of this effort, I knew some people would really be going for it. So there's a real steep section toward the beginning. I'm trying to get myself set up and into position, and I basically know from this point to the top it's going to be not an all-out effort, but it's going to be a really hard effort. You can see here, this guy Reese really goes for it and just blasts off the front. And I had no inclination to try and follow that wheel at this point. That's sort of exactly what I was talking about in terms of I want to make the splits, but I don't want to put down that kind of an effort that he just did for 5 points is the best you could do here. So I'm kind of trying to make sure that as this splits up, I'm kind of on the correct side of it. So there's a larger group right here. I just want to stay tucked into this group all the way over the top. And this climb has kind of got a couple of sections. There's that first bit, and then when we were turning left back there, it's flat for a second, and then it kicks back up. Then we're going to take this right-hander, and then it's kind of flat again to the line. So if you're really going to sprint, it's kind of from this corner to the line. And this is something I was getting at earlier is normally I would look up here at the kilometers to go if I'm sprinting for a finish and look for 300, 200, 250, somewhere in there to launch my sprint. But for these intermediate point sprints, you don't necessarily know where that's going to be. It doesn't give you a kilometer breakdown for each of those intermediate preems. So you do have to know the course a little bit better. And as predicted, it's pretty strung out right here, and I just need to stay on the pedals a little bit. Especially this false flat downhill, little 1% up, negative 1% down drag stuff. This is where the group is really going to coalesce, and I got to make sure I'm there. So I did a couple of hard kicks there, got back together, and then we rolled this group of 20 something into the base of the volcano climb. This is the last of the quote unquote intermediate points preems. So there's not a ton that goes on this climb. I think we all just wanted to stay on and then maybe go for the points at the end. But this is the longest of the intermediate climbs. Volcano climb's more like a five-minute effort. And while it is the volcano climb, there are also a lot of flat or flatter sections in here that a bigger group is going to draft. So I don't think anybody really wanted to take it on too early. There's basically a real steep kick right at the end. So it seemed like most everyone, we were going hard the whole time for sure, but nobody really wanted to try and go solo from the bottom, which was probably wise. Here goes Mike. Me and Mike kind of stringing it out a little bit. I want to take this climb to talk more about this format, though. So I think this points racing format and all these, I've called them preems, I've called them KOMs, whatever, but multiple finish lines throughout the race that are all playing into the same competition, meaning that it's not like there's a separate competition for intermediate preems and then the race on the finish line, like who wins the race. It's all going to the same place. So there's motivation for people to go hard throughout the race. And really, even if you're not going for those preems, they animated the race so much. I mean, I think most people, especially on Zwift, with e-racing in general, but especially Zwift, people complain that it ends up just being a blob, and you just got to kind of stick with the blob and then sprint at the end. But I think this format, especially when you add the team dynamics into it, makes it so much more interesting. The racing so much more dynamic. It gives people a reason to go for something. I actually, I've had mixed thoughts on how these points are weighted, with the preems early on being worth so little compared to the points at the end. Again, each of these KOM point preems are only for places 1 through 5, and then they're points 5 through 1. So like first place is 5 points, second place is 4 points, third place is 3, on like that. And then at the finish line, the actual, end of the race, those points are 40 points for first place going back from there. So, I had that in my mind, and I knew it would be a real dogfight for some of these early preems, and that, I'm probably not. It's like maybe I could get one if I really, really went for it, but is it worth going completely all in for some of those points that are, if I win all of them, I would get less points than if I got 15th or 20th or something on the final line. And that trade-off didn't seem worth it to me. But I think that carrot is just enough to dangle out there for some other teams, that they're going to animate it, and it's always going to stay animated. And it made the race way more interesting. Now, that I think is a step in the right direction, and I would love to see more native support for formats like that, where so all of these KOMs that we're sprinting for, or preem points or whatever, are sort of the predetermined in the game. Like those arches already exist, or those finish lines already exist within the game. They're kind of like the ones that if you were just free riding, it would give you a time on the climb based on those finish lines. I think what would be even more interesting is if promoters could do more like custom courses, and then also set custom finish lines, at various points. That would really change it. And it's like bringing a track points racing format onto these road courses, and it's something that would be easier to do in a game than in real life, because you're not going to have out on a road race course, especially at a local racing level, a bunch of different finish lines and a bunch of different timing mats and a bunch of different people scoring. So that leads me into my next point, which is I have no idea why there's not more in-game native support for the points part of this. So this race goes off, and then I don't think we saw final results for it for a couple days, 2 or 3 days. I mean, we knew who won across the finish line, but in terms of who got what points, and then having those all added together and seeing where the teams stood against each other, and that just seems insane to me, because this is, for all intents and purposes, this is a video game. And so imagine if you were playing, I've used this example before, imagine if you had been playing Halo back when everyone was playing Halo, and you're the blue team and you're fighting the red team, and you're just running around shooting people, but there's no way to tell who's winning, whether it's a match for, get to a certain number of kills, or get to some amount of points or capture the flag and hold on to it for a certain amount of time. The game is calculating that stuff for you and showing it to you in real time. So as we come over the KOM for this, I'm just going to pop something on the screen that, like, this is not how I think it should look, but just imagine if it worked this way. And it seems crazy to me again that it doesn't, because, like, basically at this point, like, I know I haven't gotten any points. Mike hasn't gotten any points. So we're about to hit the steepest part of this climb. So I'm using my feather, and I'm trying to move up here because I'm anticipating some splits are going to happen over the top right here. So I got to get ahead of that stuff. But again, like, we don't really know who in this group has gotten preems. We don't know if the people who got early preems also have gotten dropped, or, like, we just have no idea. So imagine right here if something just popped up and displayed, here are the teams, here are their points, or here are the individuals, here are their points, maybe both. And so then, rather than having to get in Discord and say, like, hey, Mike, where did you finish? Hugh, where did you finish? And it's also possible, if you're going all in, like, maybe you're not looking over there at the leaderboard right as you come across the line. And sometimes that leaderboard gets glitchy and weird. So what you see coming across the line is not exactly the points that get recorded. And this, you can see I'm doing a 400 watt effort on the downhill, which 400 watts might not be a lot for some of you guys, but that's like, I don't know, 6-7 watts a kilo for me. It's a lot. It's definitely hard. But that's, I knew that would be the case. I knew that it was going to break up there and that we would have to do some work to hold on to this front group. But this is the crucial moment, because it's like, if I can stick this group, and there's only, 13, 14, 15 of us in this group, that's, I'm going to be scoring some really, really high points for the team. And then I got at least one teammate in here, maybe two. So we're really stacking that top level. Skipping ahead, I think there were a couple little attacks in here where teams were maybe trying to string it out and catch some people out. Almost caught me out here for sure. They string it out a little bit, and I wanted to leave that in to show that this race stayed pretty dynamic the whole time. I mean, the first bit on the Tempest Fugit desert part really wasn't doing a whole lot, but people were making little efforts, and we were there's a chance this one could have split it. It didn't, but that's bike racing, I mean, if you watch a crit, there's probably people attacking the whole time, and 90% of those are not going to stick, but that's just how you get the racing done. This was also a good point to try a little something if you were going to, with the turns and the rollers. It can be a little bit easier to get away if other people are, the sharp turns on Zwift kind of take people out of your draft a little bit too. So if you're going to put in an effort, that's a place that makes sense to do it. But yeah, we're getting back together here, and it's kind of coalescing. I think there's one more of those little attacks. I wanted to say, though, I think what WTRL have done, and WTRL are the promoters of this race series, the Zwift Race League. They're kind of like in partnership with Zwift HQ, but they're really building on what WTRL have done as race promoters, and their skill set for, like, compiling and analyzing the data as a third party. They put on these crazy team time trials every Thursday where they're doing so much work that is not natively supported in the game, meaning that the game is they're kind of working around the format of the game. So they set up a race as a road race, and then they tell each team what time to leave the pen. That's sort of like up to those teams to leave at the correct time, and then WTRL to check that they started at the right time, and then check their finishing time of the fourth man on that team. And they use these team tags that you have to put in your name on Zwift Power. It's super crazy, but it would make a lot of sense to me for Zwift to start supporting some of this stuff natively, because a computer can do that stuff easily. Imagine every video game you've ever played, the computer is doing that work for you. It's figuring out the points and the time and all of that stuff within itself. It's not having, you don't finish a Mario Kart race and then have someone go back and look at a spreadsheet. You know, your buddy doesn't go back and look at a spreadsheet after that. So this is the Titans Grove KOM coming the other way. This is going to be the finish. Someone on the Discord just asked if we had anybody in that move up front, and I said, nope, I'm going to get there. So this KOM, it's tough to even say this is a KOM because it's so rolling. You can really see here it's like down, up, down, up. So we want to make sure we have someone in this selection, especially with how like packed tight together it is, because there's still plenty of draft to be had on some of these downhills. So maybe you don't want to chase individual flyers at this point, but as that little group of 5 got away, it was pretty crucial that we get on that, because they could get a completely insurmountable lead really early on if we let them. So I'm trying, if you watch my power here, it's really going to spike up all of these uphills, and then I'm going to really let off on all of these downhills as long as I'm in someone's draft. And that's honestly a great way to race for me, because you know I'm very adapted to these spiky efforts, these on the gas, off the gas, trying to recover quickly kind of efforts. So I'm pretty happy with how this is going. I'm just trying to monitor the front. I'm trying to not be on the front, especially as we hit any of these downhills. I weigh about 61. I think I was 62 kilograms on this day. I forget. I did a weigh-in for sure. But I'm all that to say I'm a lighter rider. So Zwift really does not let me go downhill very quickly, I'll say. So it makes a lot of sense for me to do these punchy efforts on the uphills and then try to stick in the wheels on the downhill. And this KOM, it's like I know this road pretty well, but I don't have all of these little individual punches memorized. So I'm trying to just take them as they come on, put a little effort in, and then back off when I can. Looks like one of the cryogen guys is really putting in a dig here. And like I said, I don't want to follow those individual flyers, but I want to make sure that I'm in the sort of the lead group. This is where I probably should have put in a better punch to be right on the wheel on that flat. I think I could have saved a little bit through that flatter section if I had been right on the wheel, but I did a good job here to get back in the group and in the draft before this steeper downhill. It's weird, the momentum doesn't feel quite the same on Zwift, especially as it does on RGT. It feels like you can carry a lot more momentum in the base of a hill. So this is sort of the climb in earnest. All of that was like the Titans Grove sort of rollers, and then this is, we come around this right-hand turn, and this is the hill. So this is where I'm going to really have to criticize myself. I do basically everything wrong from this point on. So we're passing the entrance to the little mountain bike course there on the right. Goes around this right-hand corner, and then we're going up. And I know that this is pretty flat at the top where the KOM arch is. So I go ahead and hit my feather power up there. And my fear is if I don't use it, I'm basically going to get onto a flatter section toward the top, and then it's not going to really help me that much. So my plan was to kind of use it there to just keep me from getting gapped a little bit earlier. But I think it did a couple of things. I was sort of overthinking it, and then I backed off too hard and maybe gave up too many spots thinking that the feather was really going to help me. And they've redone the like calculations of that feather where it doesn't actually help as much as it used to. And I think right here is where I'm seeing that I could possibly make it to this group, and that's going to be okay. I think I saw that was actually where I saw the arch for the mountain bike course finish, and I started sprinting I realized how close I was to this group right here, sprinted up to them, and then as I'm getting close to that group and we pass the mountain bike arch, I think, oh no, that's not actually the finish. I look up and realize that there's still 0.2K to go, and then I let that group, they start to surge right as I back off, and then I stood up and I'm already out of the draft. I'm kind of done deal, no man's land right there. So ninth on the line, that's good, really good solid points given that 40 points for first place point structure. Looks like we had Mike a couple of positions ahead of me. So this is the crazy thing, though. Like, this is giving us a scoreboard like this is a normal race, like this is a normal scratch race, but this is actually a points race. So it would be great if the points could be tallied here. I could see how many points I scored for the team and then see how many points the team has. I think that's really what e-racing needs to take it to the next level. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. Let's talk about it in the comments. Subscribe to the channel I'm going to have plenty more coverage of the ZRL as it unfolds and of the Echelon series over on IGT. We're getting really excited about that too. So subscribe to the channel. Thanks, y'all.